Unexpected Journey, Memoir of a Siberian Deportee by Juzė Avižienytė-Žukauskiene. Translated from Lithuanian and narrated by Giedrė Kumpikas, niece of the author, and by Isabelle Kumpikas, the sister of the author. Chapter 50. One More New Palace. I mentioned before that we were again living in our own chata. Here no one restricted us, and we did not interfere with anyone. Our settlement, the wharf. Here, all the bases were concentrated: industrial merchandise, the grain preparation station, the meat preparation station, mostly from wild animals and partially animal meat received from people as their imposed duty, the fur and fir tree oil stations. This place had received the name Melstrøy, apparently from a windmill that was built some time ago. At present, the windmill had been transferred to the regional center. Only the Storoshka, the guard's hut, had been left. This was the last little landing dock on the river Parbig, on which only small boats could navigate, tugboats with barges. In the spring, when the water would rise, all the goods of the taiga would be shipped out: grain, meat, furs, tobacco, lumber, and in exchange on the same boats were brought necessary goods: salt, petroleum, flour, and other things. The above-mentioned guard's hut belonged to the group of enterprises to which the windmill also belonged. Since my husband and my oldest son worked in the enterprise, the director offered them to buy the little house, even with some privileges, to pay it off. Who would not want to have one's own, even a poor little place? Although that house was only 7.5 square meters, the walls of thin, rough-hewed beams, the ceiling, it was the same as the roof, from the tops of the same rough-hewed beams, chopped off with axes, while the branches had apparently been knocked off with the butt of an axe, because from under the plaster their broken-off ends were sticking out. There was no stove. The floor had rotted out. 2 small windows without frames or glass were boarded up with sticks. But we were still very pleased. The little house was surrounded on 3 sides by the river, and on the 4th a little stream. Here Ivanicha would not smell the aroma of frying grain so easily. But troubles began. The neighbors met us with great hostility. Up till that time they used to keep their calves and chickens in the little house. And now, by the group enterprise director's order, they had to let us have the premises. "Why did you barge in here? How will you live here? Everything is damp and smelly. There's no stove. And where is the garden? Fools, you are paying such money. This little barn is not worth 30 rubles, and you are paying 500. The closest neighbor, Mikhailovna, said rather angrily, shaking her head. She was angry because she had to take her calf and chickens into her own chata. She had no barn. The cow used to stand in a shed attached to the wall of this house. The second neighbor, a forest guard, took to some more surreptitious means, but about that later. We paid no attention to all this. Stasuka set to work immediately. The smaller Yozukas helped him also. My husband and my oldest son lived at the center in the group barracks. The children immediately shoveled out the dung, pulled out the remnants of the rotted floor, dug out more than 1.5 meters in depth for a basement, so that no foul-smelling earth would be left. We knocked off the plaster from the walls and the ceiling. Together with the plaster, poured down the bed bugs. Since there were 4 of us working, the director good willingly allowed us to cut out floor planks at the group enterprise sawmill. At the carpenter shop, they made frames for the windows, a new door. Permission was given to obtain glass, tiles for the stove, and 10 kilograms of lime. The regional superior issued an order that the closest 15-acre lot to the chata was to be given to our family as a garden. Very soon our little house was shining with new windows, newly plastered, dazzlingly white walls and ceiling. A pleasant warmth was emanating from the new stove. There was no shortage of wood here. All around rustled the forest taiga. The new board floor was fragrant with the pleasant smell of cedar. Oh, how happy we were! No less than at the time in Komarovka, even though this palace was worth incomparably less than the other one. Spring. The frozen ground thawed. We had already obtained a spade at Komarovka, and so after work in shifts, we started digging up the garden. The ground was hard, having been beaten down for decades by people, horses, and wagons traveling to the mill. For 3 years it had not been trampled on and was overgrown with the thick grass and therefore fertile. It was difficult to dig, but we did not mind. But where to get seed? Meanwhile, the neighbors, especially the forest guard, had a great desire to make us move out. When we would leave for work, he would start to dig the ground right under our windows, since it was the most fertile. Upon returning from work, we protested, showed him the official letter from the regional commission that this land belonged to us. It's not the first year that you're living here, so why didn't you need this lot up till now? It's none of your business, the forest guard shot back arrogantly. We want to and we dig. We moved here first. And when we went to work, he hurriedly planted potatoes. We wound up having to complain to the regional superior. Immediately, the industry group enterprise director arrived. He restored order. Pick out your potatoes right away. You have been told that the land near the house is allotted to its owners, and you, Zhadyuga, greedy bastard, you have 1.5 hectares of land, and you are trying to muscle in here. Krutikov, you crook. When I swing at you, you'll know what it is to respect Soviet laws, threatened the regional superior. While Krutikov was standing, turning red and stammering that the garden next to the hut was nepolozheno, not assigned. I know better what's assigned and what isn't. Look, we have an expert here, continued the superior harshly. And you, if some blockhead tries to intrude, let me know immediately. I'll take care of him at once. The superior left, and Krutikov, like a beaten dog, all of his belligerence gone, whined to us. Well, now what will we do? We dug, we planted, we put in so much work, we pulled out so much sod and the seeds. Can we pick out all of them? All right, this year you planted, let it be, but see that next spring you don't raise any conflicts. We behaved without rancor. The man was overjoyed. He even lent us his spade. My husband, having obtained the commandant's permission, sailed by steamship 32 kilometers to the settlement of the free people. For my gold ring and a tablecloth, he got a pot, 2 pails of potatoes. The locals had no potatoes to spare. We already had experience from Komarovka. We spread them apart in a warm spot. We covered them with a very thin layer of black soil and watered them. The potatoes soon let out shoots and began to take root. We carefully took off the shoots and planted them. The potatoes let out the second ones. These too we planted in good fertile soil. The third shoots we cut out with the ends of the potatoes and planted those also. It was already June 14th. The soil of Siberia is a giving one. There you just have to touch it and everything grows luxuriantly. Unfortunately, the climate is harsh. Even in the month of June, in the forest and on the north shore of the river, one can come upon unmelted ice, if not snow. During the day, the sun is hot, but at night, the frost continues for a long time. For this reason, for the night, we used to cover the young shoots with earth, and in the morning, we dug them out again. Other shoots, cabbage, Swedish turnips, the women used to plant in boxes, which they would cover at night with braided grass coverlets.